thank you everyone for coming today. This is a very exciting opportunity that we have. And I want to first and foremost thank Dean Taylor from the Carnegie School and Center for Latin American Studies for bringing us this wonderful opportunity to have Dr. Aurora Vergara Figueroa here at BU. So I'm going to just read a brief introduction and then tell you a little bit about why I'm so excited about having her here myself. Dr. Aurora Vergara Figueroa is a distinguished Afro-Colombian scholar and public intellectual whose work bridges higher education, public policy, and critical studies on race, gender, class, and land dispossession. With deep expertise in critical race theory, comparative historical sociology, feminist critique, diasporic studies, and Afro-Latin American studies, she has significantly shaped academic and policy discourses both in Colombia and internationally. She is currently a visiting scholar at the Harvard University as a fellow at the Afro-Latin American Research Institute, which is part of the Hutchins Center for African and African American Research. A columnist for El País America, she has also made history as Colombia's first Afro-Colombian minister and Deputy Minister of National Education. Her leadership and advocacy earned her recognition as one of Forbes' most powerful women in Colombia in 2024, and as an Afro-Colombian of the Year in 2023 by the Color of Colombia Foundation and the newspaper El Espectador. Professor Vergara Figueroa holds a PhD in sociology from the University of Massachusetts Amherst and has previously served as director for the Center of Afro-Diasporic Studies, SAF, and professor at ICESI University in Cali, Colombia. She is author and editor of several influential books, including, and I think you're going to speak a little bit about this, the Estudios Afrocolombianos, Lecturas Esenciales, co-edited with Alejandro de la Fuente and Angelica Sanchez from the Harvard University, which was just launched on 5 tomes, just launched. And I cannot understate the fact that this is a field-defining publication, 5 tomes that really put together the entire field of Afro-Colombian studies. I hope you can maybe share the link because it's a downloadable book, and so we can hopefully share that with everybody. She's also author of Descolonizando Mundos, Afro-Descendant Resistance to Deracination in Colombia, Demandando Mi Libertad, and has contributed to volumes such as the Routledge Handbook of Afro-Latin American Studies and Oxford Bibliographies in Sociology. Her recent publications continue to explore Afro-Colombian histories and knowledge production, reaffirming her role as a leading voice in Afro-diasporic scholarship. So I just, on a more personal note, and I was describing this to Professor Vergara Figueroa earlier, I've been working on symbolic reparations for a decade, and in relationship to the Colombian armed conflict. And time and time again, I found that the only way for reparations to really meet the twin demands of measures of satisfaction and guarantees of non-repetition was through historic reparations. And I think Professor Vergara Figueroa has done so much for advancing decolonization, anti-racism, and historic reparations in Colombia that I cannot tell you how excited I am to be able to introduce her here and learn from you. So please join me in welcoming.
Thank you for your presence here today. It is an honor for me to talk about the futures we can imagine, reflecting on my professional career so far. I would like to begin by thanking Dean Scott Taylor, also Ambassador Paul here, Ana Maria Reyes, Elizabeth Ambrian, Ashley Bermudez, and Sarah Basirian for everything that you have done to allow this lecture to be possible today, and to every person and institution involved in the preparation of this lecture. I am honored and humbled by being offered the opportunity to speak before you here today. I am a sociologist by training, and my professional career has been oriented towards crafting interdisciplinary projects and fostering collaborations. With this aim, particularly of achieving educational equality. And by this, I mean reflecting on the latest UNESCO report, an education that is conceived as a common good, as a cornerstone for peace, just, and sustainable futures. I was raised in a land of waters, and I'm sharing with you here a photo of my hometown, Ifmina, in Chocó, a land of waters, a land of rivers. Attending in the Liceo Chocó that we call Ifmina in Colombia. I remember running to school every morning, few minutes before 7 a.m. after helping my mom to cook breakfast in a cooking stove. And while walking to school, the neighbors would be out saying hi to everybody, making sure that every kid and teenager was up to their duties. And of course, collecting information all day long to report to my mom about my whereabouts, as they would do for everybody else in town. My school, that was close to this particular section of the photo taken by a Mursi, was una escuela normal superior, a type of school where you go to be trained to be a professor. Hence, starting in first school, I was being taught how to behave as a professor. When I graduated, there was a community-wide debate about what I ought to do with my future. There was an unanimous advice that I should leave town, study, and return to help those that I have left back home. Those early moments of my life taught me three particular lessons. The first one about the importance of reading and writing, about the importance of community-led change, and also about the importance of sowing, about the importance of seeding, planting, with intention, what you want to harvest in the future. These are the most important lessons that I have in my life, and for this reason, this is what I would like to say, this is where my passion in life comes from. Therefore, I would like to use this, I would like to speak about the importance of how I have been able to put together scholarship that is transnational. Also, I would like to provide examples of transnational and global collaborations, community-led advocacy, and some examples on public policy, so that we can have some time to discuss and to continue working together in the future. In 2011, while I was writing my dissertation, I spent a short time as an advisor to the presidency in Colombia. And there I experienced the importance of knowledge production that was locally based, policy oriented, and connected to grassroots community processes. When I was awarded a PhD in sociology from the University of Massachusetts Amherst, I started working as an assistant professor at ICESI University in Cali, Colombia. And years later, I was granted tenure. The foundation of both my scholarship and the administrative work that I conducted for over a decade was transnational scholarship and global collaboration. And therefore, I propose that we create a research center for Afro-diasporic studies. With the funding from the Latin American Studies Association and later the Ford Foundation, I was able to lead a group of scholars to edit and publish this book, Demando mi libertad, that was later presented with the 2020 Montserrat Ordóñez Award at LASA for the best book on gender and women's studies. What we did here was to compile stories from the archives of women that went before courts in Colombia, Venezuela, and Cuba to demand their freedom. And it was really interesting to see that all these important stories about women going to court in such an early time in history were not being written about or recorded while they were in their archives, in which many historians have passed by, writing about all the different histories. With the support of GLASO, the Latin American Council on Social Sciences, I was also able to lead a team of scholars to compile the ontology Descolonizando Mundos, aportes de intelectuales negros y negras al pensamiento social afrocolombiano, decolonializing words, contributions of Black intellectuals to Colombian social thought, and also to be a group to produce voices of resistance a documentary series where we started portraying the lives of a group of survivors, the victims of Bojayá, the massacre of Bojayá. And this is the example that I'm showing here is you can find this in Spotify. We were able to write books and to record an album with their voices, and also to produce a specific documentary, the experiences that they were presented in their territories. Why was this important? What was their power? They used their traditional songs to sing and voice their demands to perpetrators of violence in Colombia. When confronted with a lack of official accounts of the events of violence they were experiencing, kidnappings, disappearances, and deaths, they would insert the names of their loved ones that were impacted by any event that they needed to highlight. And they would sing this song with this new name in their native church every single day. They found a way to build a collective memory, to remember, but at the same time to help their community to heal through the pain of violence. This was a very specific way to keep their own records and to teach the country and the world about what was happening in their community while keeping themselves alive. So they were not confronting the violence, let's say with another type of violence, they were confronting and resisting violence by remembering and teaching everybody in the community what was happening. They became so powerful that they were invited to sing at the signing of the Colombian 2016 peace accord. With this group of women, I was able to put together a social intervention and research program that allowed colleagues from other disciplines to join this particular project. And we were able to publish several products, articles, chapters, and books that were later used for graduate classes, undergraduate classes in law school, anthropology, sociology, political science, epidemiology, economics, and design, because we were able to get the colors, the letters, and everything from what they were able to write and to design in the community workshops. We were able to also print the clothing that they were going to use with their handwritten letters. When the research center was consolidated, we were able and we were fortunate enough to be offered a possibility to sign an agreement with the Afro-Latin American Research Institute, ALARI, at Harvard University, to work collaboratively in strengthening the field of Afro-Latin American studies. As a result of this fruitful collaboration, both institutions have joined forces to offer a graduate certificate of Afro-Latin American studies, also to develop a consortium, and as of 5 days ago, we were able to launch a new edited volume that portrays the essential readings about the lives of the Afro-Colombians. These are 5 volumes that contain 22 chapters in over 1,000 pages in Spanish. This collection centers the work of 23 artists, and here this is one of the photos that we have published in the book, and 29 authors. You can go ahead. Don't worry about it. Thank you. And as for 2026, we are working together on the ALARI Continental Conference, expecting hundreds of scholars to travel to Cali, Colombia, an epicenter of Black life in Latin America. And if you have questions, the Associate Director, Ronia, is here to answer any question that you want to, if you have any questions concerning this event, so that we can welcome you in Cali, Colombia next year. These interventions challenge epistemic hierarchies and reposition historically silenced voices within the academic discourse. So when we think about the futures that we can imagine, echoing the UNESCO's report vision for a new social contract in education, these examples that I have provided align with the call to center human dignity and cultural diversity, and the co-construction of knowledge in education systems. When considering global collaborations and community-led advocacy, I would like to provide the following examples. Partnering with the Ford Foundation and Open Society Foundations, I played a leading role in the development of initiatives such as the Pacific Task Force for the discovery project on anti-blackness. The COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 highlighted the historical inequalities experienced by Afro-Colombians, and at the time we were able to find ways to face the emergency with a really creative strategy. It was necessary for academic and government authorities, organizations, and civil society to coordinate efforts to develop strategic actions and to contribute to closing the enormous gaps of social injustice lived by these communities. So this photo is illustrative of a confrontation that before the photo happened between the police and the street vendors, because there was, I don't know if you remember how difficult it was in the first months of the pandemic, that people were not supposed to be in close contact, but they needed to sell their food in order to survive. So we were able to develop a strategy to get the food from them and then to distribute it in different parts of the Colombian Pacific. Through an ecosystem of collaborative and intersectional efforts, we work on strengthening the capacities of community councils, Afro-descendant organizations, and also the primary and secondary education institutions to address the challenges that the Pacific region demanded to safeguard ethnic territories in the face of the pandemic and climate change. We were successful in securing efforts and securing also resources to provide food, health emergency response tools, school supplies, among others. Having a research center as the core of this strategy, we put in motion an international program that was actually led by community activists in rural areas. To achieve this goal, I secured a donation of $2 million. This program demonstrated the importance both to face the emergency of the pandemic, but at the same time to secure the resources and the funding for the recovery efforts. I am fortunate to lead these collaborations, and with my leadership, collaborations with the philanthropic organizations have proven to be transformative. For example, in the context of the killing of the George Floyd in the United States, and at the same time the violence happening in Colombia and Brazil and many other countries in the world, and the wave of mobilizations that this horrific event sparked globally, co-writing a report entitled An Anti-Black War demonstrated how cross-sector philanthropic collaboration can foster creative change. Through philanthropic engagement, we were able to support anti-racist actions globally. For example, launching inspiring projects such as the Voices of Equality that allowed us to portray and to show the country that there was a diversity of voices that needed to be heard in the country. These efforts demonstrate how sociological inquiry, when coupled with interdisciplinary and grassroots efforts and collaboration, can contribute to transformative change in education and beyond. These examples of the results of global collaborations between universities in Colombia, the United States, Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, and partnerships with philanthropic institutions demonstrate how interdisciplinary and cross-sector collaboration in global studies can enact futures rooted in equity and social justice. When I was an associate professor on the road to be a full professor, when I was invited to serve the country as part of the team to collect the information on the transition between governments, and after concluding that responsibility, being tasked to be Deputy Minister of Higher Education and later Minister of Education, I was concerned with making sure that accessibility would be possible within the efforts that we were going to lead. I'm going to provide some examples of what happened in this particular month. To expand education access, we worked on ensuring that education was accessible to children across Colombia, especially in rural and underserved areas. Our initiatives focus on reducing barriers to education, offering new opportunities to attend school. For example, since our country has very diverse communities, we were able to create one specific strategy. We call it profesores itinerantes, or professors that need to itinerate or to rotate between schools. We've also created a new base of over 7,000 teacher tutors, and sought allies to create 700 centers of interest in science, technology, and innovation in close to 300 municipalities. This initiative helped us to complement the school feeding program that now is close to 80% of the coverage, guaranteeing food to close to 6 million children and teenagers. To strengthen public education, we made efforts to improve the quality of education, promoting significant reforms aimed at enhancing the capabilities of teachers, as well as increasing investment in the public sector. I am specifically proud that we were able to launch one version of the school feeding program that will allow close to 1 million students in the education sector to receive food baskets during the school break. And two of the most underserved states were the main benefactors, Chocó and La Guajira. At the center of this educational policy were the teachers and the commitment to achieve a student-teacher relationship similar to the average of the OECD. To qualify the pedagogical practices and also to create, we were also able to create close to 9,000 positions and offer to more than 1,000 teacher training scholarships, master programs, and PhD programs for them. Thanks to these strategies, we were able to see positive results in something that most of the time you cannot see physically, and it's the decrease in school dropouts. We were able to see the transition between 4.37% in 2022 to 3.93% in 2023, and as well as an increase in the rate of the coverage in higher education, that we're able to see an increase from 53% to 55% in the same period. We also made sure to work towards inclusive quality education. Even though in Colombia there is not one unified curriculum, we advocated for more inclusive and diverse pedagogical practices, focusing on the cultural and regional diversity in the country. I pushed for educational content that reflected the multicultural nature of the country, giving students a broader perspective of their identities. Focusing on digital education, we were able to emphasize during my tenure the importance of integrated digital tools and technologies in education. We made an effort to focus on gender equality, to make sure that girls' enrollment, retention, and completion rates were sustained and also to increase, mainly in the remote and rural regions. This effort was extended to the higher education system, and this is the reason why we passed the 2023 Law of Gratuity in Education. We were also able to increase access to higher education by helping the system to have a faster way to approve their programs to advance innovation in the higher educational system. In Colombia, indigenous professors used to have the lowest paying rate in the scale. So with this new degree, we were able to consider their local experience, the experience of their lives, as part of the qualifications that the system recognized in order to assign them a better payment. So this is the reason why we passed this degree, to make sure that they had a better payment. And we launched a program that we call University in Your Territory, Universidad en tu Territorio, so that students and their families in the rural areas have more opportunities to access higher education. This is a selection of photos of many things that we did across the years to exemplify one thing in particular, that I was able to create and to increase this by 700% the funding of the students' victims of violence. And that specific result moved me while I was presenting the results to the Constitutional Court, because I remember asking the team, that I had the honor to lead, that we needed to make sure that students victims of violence found a difference in the system once we finished our tenure. And when you give an order, sometimes people just don't follow through. And when we're able to prove before the Constitutional Court that actually 700% was the increase of the funding for these students, by the time we did that, I realized that it was worth it, everything that we had to do. I was not able to see, though, the statutory law approved, but I know that's going to be approved in the near future because the country is going to need it if we want to boost the capacity to create a more inclusive, innovative, and accessible system. The core idea of my leadership was restoring human dignity. What we achieved in a nutshell was we were able to secure a historical budget for education that went from 57 billion Colombian pesos in 2022 to 70 billion. So from 53 to 70 billion. That's placing the education sector above the defense sector in Colombia. And that is extremely important for any country that wants to secure progress. This is paying for greater coverage in initial education, is securing more opportunities for comprehensive training in official institutions, and also is helping to better the infrastructure in different regions. These efforts embody the UNESCO's report's emphasis on rethinking curricula, recognizing multiple ways of knowing to build more just educational landscapes. All these efforts, I am certain that are expected to continue yielding positive outcomes for years to come as they solidify a shift toward territorial equity and inclusive quality education when state interventions promote the recognition of dignity for all. When I concluded my service as Minister of National Education, I was told by my niece, who is passionate about makeup and skincare routines, that I needed time to rest. What she really said by looking at my fatigued eyes was, you need a sabbatical year to heal, to rejuvenecer. That's what she saw, what she saw. She's 15. And here I am. In the last 9 months, I have been honored to be a visiting scholar at the Afro-Latin American Research Institute, ALARI, and soon at the Hutchins Center for African and African American Studies. I was able to serve the Ford Foundation to allocate $1 million to launch this network, the Malunga Network, for social justice and against anti-Black racism. This is a network of scholars and grassroots leaders from Colombia, Canada, the US, Mexico, Guatemala, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, Haiti, Brazil, Ecuador, Argentina, Cameroon, and the United Kingdom, among others. This group of scholars and leaders are moving forward an agenda against anti-Blackness. To conclude this talk, I have provided examples of how, through a blend of public policy, transnational scholarship, and community-led advocacy, we can contribute to imagining and enacting futures that are rooted in equity and social justice. As I told you in the beginning of this talk, I was raised in a land of waters, in a land of rivers. And there is something inspiring about water. It finds its way, always, quietly, powerfully, fertilizing everything in its path. As the world encounters challenging times, I undoubtedly trust that we can continue training the next generation of global leaders by providing spaces for healing, for learning, for students and administrative personnel and professors to become what they dream to be. Offering a campus in which they find the resources to grow, in which we collectively take care of each other. Together, these efforts suggest that the field of global studies can imagine futures rooted in the construction of just, plural, and interconnected worlds, where knowledge circulates across borders, power is redistributed, and dignity is made central to education and collective life. Thank you.